Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Hare.
Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Gaura Pimanandi Jayam Vishupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotra Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charanarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Skandibiti Founder Acharyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Ki Jai Shri Krishna Balarama Ki Jai Shri Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande. All gladies to the assembled devotees. All gladies to the assembled devotees. All gladies to the assembled devotees. All gladies to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga. All gladies to Sri Prabhupada Ki.
Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Sarakaya Taksurunmiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the Supremost Human Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesha badreshu
नष्टप्रयेषु भद्रेषु
nityam bhagavata sevaya
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
bhagavatutamashloke
भागवतीतमश्लोके
bhaktir bhavati naistiki.
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी.
By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama
इदं भागवतं नाम
Puranam Brahmasamitam
पुराणं ब्रह्मसंहितं
Uttama Charitam
उत्तमश्लोकचरितं
Chakara Bhagavan Rishi
चकार भगवन् ऋषि
Nishreyasaya Lokasya
निःश्रेयसे लोकस्य
Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat.
धन्यं शयनं महान्.
This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya
श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य
Prabhu Nityananda
प्रभु नित्यानंद
Sri Advaita Gadadhara
श्री अद्वैत गदाधर
Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
हरे कृष्ण
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे
Hare Rama Hare Rama
हरे राम हरे राम
Rama Rama Hare Hare
राम राम हरे हरे.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय.
Om Sarabhyaya Namaha
ओम सुरभ्याय नमः.
Om Sarabhyaya Namaha
ओम सुरभ्याय नमः.
Om Sarabhyaya Namaha
ओम सुरभ्याय नमः.
Mukham karoti vasalam pangum nangayate girim yatkripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam yatkripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class, continuing from Canto number 1, chapter 9, the passing of Grandfather Bhishmadev. Text number 37. Yes. Sva
स्व
nigamam
निगमम्
apahaya
अपहाय
mat
मत्
pratignam
प्रतीग्नं
ritam
ऋतं
adhikartum
अधिकार्तुम्
avapluto
अवप्लुतो
rathastaha
रतस्तः
drita
धृत
ratha
रथ
charano
चरणो
vyayach
व्यायच
chaladgur
चलद्गुर
harir
हरि
iva
इव
hantum
हन्तुम्
ibham
इवं
gatotariyah
गतोत्तरियः
gatotariyah
गतोत्तरियः
swanigamam appahaya mat pratignam.
स्वनिगम् अपहाय मत्प्रतीकम्
Ritam adhikartum avapluto rathastaha.
Ritam adhikartam avaplito ratasta.
Dhritarata charano vyayatschalaggur.
Ritarata charo bhyayat chaladgur.
Haririvahantum ibham gato tariyaha.
Hari rivaham tum gatam karutriya.
Swanigamam appahaya mat pratignam.
Sunikamam apahaya mati pratignam.
Ritam adhikartum avapluto rathastaha.
Ritam adhikartam avaputo rathastha.
Dhritarata vyayatschalaggur.
Ritarata charanabhyayat chaladgur.
Dhritarata vyayatschalaggur.
Ritarata charanabhyayat chaladgur.
Haririvahantum ibham gato tariyaha.
Harivahantum vibham gatatariyaha.
Swanigamam appahayamat pratignam.
Sunigamam apahaya pratignam.
Ritam adhikartum avapluto rathastaha.
Ritam adhikatum avaputo rathastha.
Dhritarata vyayatschalaggur.
Ritarata charanabhyayat chaladgur.
Haririvahantum ibham gato tariyaha.
Harivahantum vibham gatatariyaha.
Shanigamamapahaya matpratigya
Sanigamam appahayamat pratignam.
Mitamadhikartu ma plutarathasthaha.
Ritam adhikartum avapluto rathastaha.
Dhitaratha charanabhyad chaladguho.
Dhritarata charano vyayatschalaggur.
Haririvahantumibham gatatariyaha.
Haririvahantum ibham gato tariyaha.
Swani gamapahaya mat pratigyam.
Swanigamam appahayamat pratignam.
Ritam dikartum apluto ratasta.
Ritam adhikartum avapluto rathastaha.
Ritarata charano vyachal chudagur.
Dhritarata charano vyayatschalaggur.
Hari vahatu bhim gatotariya.
Haririvahantum ibham gato tariyaha.
Shanigamam apahaya matpratignam.
Swanigamam appahayamat pratignam.
Ritam adhikartum avaplutaratastaha.
Ritam adhikartum avapluto rathastaha.
Dhitaratha charana abhayak chaladgur.
Dhritarata charano vyayatschalaggur.
Haririvahantum ibham gatatriyaha.
Haririvahantum ibham gato tarayaha. Swanigamam appahayamat pratignam. Ritam adhikartum avapluto rathastaha. Dhritarata charano vyayatschalaggur. Haririvahantum ibham gato tariyaha. Swanigamam. Own truthfulness.
Own truthfulness.
Apahaya.
Apahaya.
For nullifying.
For nullifying.
Mat pratignam.
Pratignam.
My own promise.
My own promise.
Ritam.
Ritam.
Factual.
Factual.
Adhi.
Adhi.
More.
More.
Kartum.
Kartum.
For doing it.
For doing it.
Avaplutaha.
Avaplutaha.
Getting down.
Getting down.
Ratastaha.
Rathastaha.
From the chariot.
From the chariot.
Drita.
Drita.
Taking up.
Taking up.
Ratha.
Ratha.
Chariot.
Chariot.
Saranaha.
Charanaha.
Wheel.
Wheel.
Abhyayat.
Abhyayat.
went hurriedly.
went hurriedly,
Chalad guhu,
Chalad Guhu,
trampling the earth.
trampling the earth.
Harihi,
Harihi,
lion.
lion,
Iva,
Eva,
like.
like
Hantum,
Hantum,
to kill.
to kill.
Ibham,
Ibham,
elephant.
elephant.
Gata,
Gata,
leaving aside.
leaving
leaving
aside.
aside.
Uttariyaha,
Uttariyaha,
covering cloth.
covering cloth.
Uttariya. Who has Uttariya? No Uttariya, no Uttariya, Uttariya, no Uttariya, Uttariya. Oh, okay, yes. Our Nandeshwar Prabhu is leaving us for a few days. We wish him a happy and safe journey to his village and a quick return. Hare Krishna. Jai. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. Kindly repeat after me. Fulfilling my desire,
Fulfilling my desire,
fulfilling my desire,
fulfilling my desire,
and sacrificing his own promise,
and sacrificing on promise,
he got down
he got down
from the chariot,
from the chariot,
took up its wheel,
took up its wheel,
and ran towards me
and ran towards me
hurriedly,
hurriedly,
just as a lion
just as a lion
goes to kill an elephant.
goes to kill an elephant.
He even dropped
He even dropped
his outer garment
his outer garment
on the way.
on the way. I go with him, Pukur Ghat, leave him by cycle.
Purport. The battle of Kurukshetra was fought on military principles, but at the same time in a sporting spirit, like a friend's fight with another friend. Duryodhana criticized Bhishma Dev, alleging that he was reluctant to kill Arjuna because of paternal affection. A Kshatriya cannot tolerate insults on the principle of fighting. Bhishma Dev therefore promised that the next day he would kill all 5 Pandavas with special weapons made for the purpose. Duryodhana was satisfied and he kept the arrows with him to be delivered the next day during the fight. By tricks, Arjuna took the arrows from Duryodhana, and Bhishma Dev could understand that this was the trick of Lord Krishna. So he took a vow that the next day Krishna would have to take up weapons himself, otherwise his friend Arjuna would die. In the next day's fighting, Bhishma Dev fought so violently that both Arjuna and Krishna were in trouble. Krishna in trouble. Arjuna was almost defeated. The situation was so tense that he was about to be killed by Bhishma Dev the very next moment. At that time, Lord Krishna wanted to please his devotee, Bhishma, by keeping Bhishma's promise, which was more important than his own. Seemingly, he broke his own promise He promised before the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra that he would remain without weapons and would not use his strength for either of the parties. But to protect Arjuna, he got down from the chariot, took up the wheel of the chariot, and hurriedly rushed at Bhishmadev in an angry mood, as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He dropped his covering cloth on the way, and out of great danger, he did not know that he had dropped it. Bhishmadev at once gave up his weapons and stood to be killed by Krishna, his beloved Lord. The fighting of the day was thus ended at that very moment, and Arjuna was saved. Of course, there was no possibility of Arjuna's death because the Lord himself was on the chariot. But because Bhishmadev wanted to see Lord Krishna take up some weapon to save his friend, the Lord created this situation, making Arjuna's death imminent. He stood before Bhishmadev to show him that his promise was fulfilled and that he had taken up the wheel. Translation again, fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise. He got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. So this is one of the famous photos or pictures or scenes. We have it there. There you go. Of the Mahabharata. Yeah. Probably the devotees cannot see it here because it's like electronic, but yeah. Krishna just I mean it's a very beautiful scene, but also full of very deep meaning, as elaborated here by Srila Prabhupada. So Bhishmadev had, a number of things. One is the Kshatriya spirit. In modern day society, Kshatriya spirit is unknown practically because there are no Kshatriyas. We get a little glimpse of what is Kshatriya by reading Mahabharata and Ramayana. Kshatriyas fought on principles of dharma. Therefore, they were trained. They had to be trained. And this training would take many years, many years, to become very qualified, not only in terms of fighting, but especially in terms of the codes. You could say the codes of conduct or etiquette, or the principles that are embedded within the science of is called Dandaniti. Very, very involved science. Actually, some years ago, when I was in Indonesia, I think I mentioned that a few times, one of our devotees who was responsible for translating Prabhupada's books actually in local language, and he was not even from Indonesia, but he learned the language so well that he was more proficient than even local people, yeah. So he translated Prabhupada's books, and so he printed books, and he had books in his like small go down where he lives. That was in Jakarta. So in the book, the address is there. So whoever, address was there and maybe telephone number or email. So sometimes people would write or call. Sometimes they would come. So this one fine day, two officers, military officers, they came and they had somehow gotten a book and they were curious to know more about the philosophy. So he met them. He told me this afterwards. That was many years back. So in the conversation, naturally they talked about, uh, Vedic culture. Like they must have talked about the Battle of Kurukshetra also, and and because Indonesia is even now culturally still very closely connected with India, because just a few hundred years ago, uh, the kings who ruled were actually Vaishnava kings. It was Vaishnava kingdom, and Hindu. Now the only remnants are like in Bali. So in the conversation at one point, because in Prabhupada's books, practically every other page, the name Krishna is there. That's why if somebody reads any one of Prabhupada's books, at the end of reading the book, he cannot but be Krishna conscious. When I first read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, I thought, wow, Krishna is really everywhere. You can count, like in some purports, like maybe 10 times or 15 times, whatever. So at one point, in discussing about Krishna and the philosophy, they revealed to him that in the military science that is still followed in Indonesia, when there is a very critical situation in a war, there's a secret password. And, maybe they change the password occasionally, I suppose, because, so they told him that the secret password for some very special is Krishna, the very word Krishna. So actually, we know that Krishna is the password to go back to the spiritual world. So it is a totally forgotten science. And here it mentions how, we saw examples of this during the Battle of Kurukshetra as well. It's described that, after the sun sets, you go to your enemy's camp and you're a friend. It's like you're welcomed, and they have discussions and sit down. Please have a cup of tea. Maybe not tea, but have some hot milk. Right. The British had not come at that time to bring their tea. The tea comes from the British, actually. So, so this whole, even in wartime, so there were principles, and I thought I heard some conch shell. Maybe.
Yes, behind.
Okay, yeah. Well, so just like it mentions here that Duryodhana, he could sense, he could understand Bhishmadev. He's such a great warrior, but he's not fighting to his full power because of his affection, naturally, for the Pandavas. So, as Prabhupada explained, Kshatriyas, they cannot take insult, and so that's why he made that promise, and Prabhupada relates how, by Krishna's trick, Krishna is full of tricks and makes all kinds of arrangements, ultimately actually for the protection and the satisfaction of his devotees. So Bhishmadev made the promise that unless Krishna breaks his promise, then Arjuna is finished. Arjuna and all his brothers, the Pandavas, finished. So that whole scene is there, And yeah, one of the principles that happened actually in the late afternoon, just before the sun was about to set, because they start the war when the first rays of the sun is seen. Oh, the conch goes, and then when the last rays of the sun, when it goes down, again the conch. That's the end. Very nice system. And people use, fighters, just like in the early days in the Western countries. Just imagine, huh? People used to walk around with guns, isn't it? You see movies.
Yes, yes.
Should not see movies. But before I became a devotee, naturally we see different we call them Western movies. The early days of the American, because cowboys and Indians pictures were quite famous and this and that, and it was, it was just natural for, I guess you could call them Kshatriya, Western version of Kshatriyas. They would, because previously, actually, when I was visiting Indonesia, quite some years back, we had gone to one island, quite remote, quite far, and we were going by car, and the local people there still walk around with bow and arrows. As a matter of fact, we went to one devotee's land, and the neighbor was actually claiming that part of the land was his, and there was kind of like a dispute. And when we arrived there, the guy was out with his bow and arrow. I ran behind the car. Yeah, he didn't use it, but yeah, actually. So, so carrying a conch, it was like part of the, I guess, part of the armory, you could say, part of the paraphernalia, and it has, different purposes. So, there's very Krishna, who is known as Bhaktavatsala. He's very affectionate to his devotees, and especially devotee like Arjuna. And he is ready to break his own promise. He's ready to break his own promise to, number one, protect his devotee, Arjuna, and also to keep the promise of grandfather Bhishmadev, who stated that, well, unless Krishna breaks his promise, then Arjuna will be killed. So in this way, we get glimpses of a very very different culture, very advanced culture, where even in fighting with enemies, especially the Battle of Kurukshetra was very unique in so many ways, because it's like some devotees were fighting against other devotees, right? Bhishmadev, especially. So, so this particular pastime is very significant. Yeah. So very often Krishna will create situations and that will serve many purposes, that will serve different purposes. And that means that the Lord is very very sensitive to the feelings of his devotees. That means that the Lord is very obviously very very personal, and he reciprocates based on the the inner sentiments and feelings of his devotees. When he sees that those are very sincere and very genuine feelings, then there's so many examples. Um, we read from the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Who's that little boy who was making an offering on behalf of his father? Because normally, like in Brahmana families, one performs puja. After performing puja, one offers bhoga, isn't it? And so normally that is done by, although in a family, everyone is helping in different ways to, should be, that's how, one of the important ways that families can actually be united when they together are nicely engaged in worshiping the Lord on the altar. That's why it's important to have altar. So, I forget the name of this devotee had to go urgently somewhere, so he asked his small, maybe 4-year-old son, "Do you make the offering to Gopal?" You've heard that story? Yeah. You make the offering to our Gopal. So the little boy, who was, familiar with offering and whatnot, because he's part of the daily jagya that is taking place. So the father left, and then the boy made a nice, prepared nice plate of like some sweets and fruit. Then he was seeing every day his father, ding, 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 the bell ringing, and then chanting the mantras and requesting the Lord, please come and take, like that. So he was following all of that, and then after some time, after reciting all the prayers, offering, paying his obeisances, then he was just sitting, and he was waiting for Krishna to come and take his prasadam. Krishna wasn't coming. Prasadam was still there. So he became a little anxious that maybe I did something wrong.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah. So he again made, offered prayers, and in this way, Krishna was still not coming. Prasadam was still on the plate. It's just like we're reading yesterday, the day before, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Raghava Pandit.
Yes, Raghu Pandita.
Raghava Pandit, who was very meticulous in making his offerings, especially he would offer coconuts that he would get from many miles away, many kilometers, 20 kilometers away.
And very costly.
Very costly also, yes. He would trim them, he would prepare them, etc., like that. and he would offer the pulp within the coconut,
Yes.
and sometimes the pulp would not be there after offering it,
Yes.
isn't it? So he was very happy, but then sometimes the pulp would be returned, and he was feeling very ecstatic that the Lord he has taken it, and then sometimes he is returning it, isn't it? So this little boy, did you find that reference, Orlina? No, huh? Yeah. So then after some time, this little boy became very, very anxious that Krishna is not, so he began to cry. And then Krishna actually finally decided, okay, I should take this. I should actually take this prasadam that he's offering. So Krishna actually took. So then the little boy was, okay, no more in anxiety. And so he cleaned up everything and finished the offering. And then after a short time, his father came back. He had traveled. He was a little tired, but he was also hungry. So he told the young boy, okay, please, now it's time for prasadam. Please arrange, you can serve. And then the little boy told him, there is no prasadam. Krishna took the prasadam. Yeah. So in other words, Prabhupada explains how it's like a young boy, especially raised, let's say, in a Vaishnava family, very innocent, very spontaneous, isn't it? So the pastimes of Krishna and Vrindavan, they are like that. They're very innocent, very spontaneous, and very natural. And the residents of Vrindavan actually have this kind of rapport, this kind of relationship with Krishna, which cannot actually be imitated. And actually, in our dealings, just like Prabhupada, for example, he established not that type of worship, which is of course very, in so many ways, very intimate and very confidential, because it's only possible for those who are at that high level of consciousness. Rather, Prabhupada installed, these this type of, we could say, Dwarka mood type of worship, royal kind of worship, because in our temples we have this type of very high standard, and to avoid actually this kind of situation where we prematurely or artificially imitate the residents of Vrindavan, who have, by nature and by dint of their spiritual elevation, are eligible or qualified to have this type of relationship, which is something that later, as one advances and progresses in Krishna consciousness, can actually become manifest or can be revealed. But not to be, because it's very naturally attractive. And we read about so many of all of the pastimes of Krishna with the residents of Vrindavan, especially with his peers. Of course, Krishna is always playing that perfect role of being, an ideal son, and always respectful rather, to his parents and to the adults. But when he is dealing with his friends of the same age, then there's a whole, and with the gopis as well, there's a whole different mood and mentality in terms of exchange. But it's based on this very, very, very high level of purity. One cannot actually be fully sincere unless this quality of purity is there. Purity and sincerity go hand in hand. One cannot actually be sincere unless one is purified in consciousness. So we cannot actually approach Krishna unless we have this type of sincerity, unless we have this type of purity, which Krishna very much appreciates, because purity originates from Krishna, isn't it? What is natural, what is spontaneous, originates from Krishna. And therefore, Krishna especially is drawn, he's attracted to exchange, to reciprocate with devotees who have this type of mood and mentality. We can say, in the example of Grandfather Bhishmadev, he has that sincerity as well, because he's totally totally surrendered to Krishna. He understands Krishna as the Supreme Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he also understands how Krishna is bound to protect his devotee also, to the point of breaking his promise of not becoming involved in the fighting. So these are the base qualities that we all need to develop as devotees, and we can generally do this only if we learn to interact and exchange with other devotees, isn't it? Just like we cannot, our philosophy, our understanding, we cannot directly approach Krishna unless we go through his devotees, through his representative, beginning with the spiritual master and other Vaishnavas. So our ability to actually interact and reciprocate with Krishna, which ultimately we get that opportunity, is through his devotees, even in the spiritual world. Even, for example, in Vrindavan, the pastimes of Vrindavan, it's not that everyone is directly interacting with Krishna. Rather, through different devotees, through the more advanced devotees, and then opportunities are given sometimes for devotees to have direct interaction with Krishna as well. So it's a very involved science, which we can get glimpses of by reading these various pastimes as we're doing now. So any thoughts or comments on this?
For me, Maharaj, it was very interesting to hear that Srila Prabhupada purposefully established the more Dvaraka mood of worship of the deities.
Yes.
Would you say that there is some gradual process how to develop the more like
Yeah, the gradual process is called sadhana bhakti. we have to we have to follow in the footsteps. Our models are the Goswamis of Vrindavan. The Goswamis of Vrindavan were on that liberated, spontaneous, natural platform. And they have given us in their writings how to gradually attain or come to that platform. And it cannot be done artificially. It cannot be done prematurely. Prabhupada gives a nice example. You've come back already? Okay. Couldn't see. Prabhupada gives a nice example. Prabhupada gives a nice example in, hey, you go out of the class if you're going to have, go out of the class if you're going to have discussions. Don't have discussions in the class. You go out, if need be, you go out of the class and discuss. In the lecture series on the nectar devotion, which is the essence of what the residents of Vrindavan are performing all of these leelas or pastimes with Krishna based on bhakti, isn't it? On the science of devotional service. So Prabhupada gives a nice, very simple, easy to understand example or like analogy. He explains how, we've all heard how the ability to understand or to practice bhakti is within every living entity, isn't it? Krishna Bhakti Nitya Siddha. It is the eternal nature, quality of every living entity. But it has to be awakened. So how to awaken it? And Prabhupada says, just like sex attraction is also built in every living entity. When a child is born, for the first few years, he knows nothing about sex life. And it will take quite a few years, isn't it? It will take until he actually goes through bodily transformations, like adolescence. In adolescence, he doesn't have to try in any particular way. It's just how biologically the body develops, so that at some particular point, he has to be cautious because that sex attraction is there because of the development that has taken place, let's say biologically. In a similar way, when we actually properly apply the process as instructed by those personalities who are the most expert in the science of bhakti, the Goswamis, which is further presented and explained by our Vaishnava acharyas. And our foremost Vaishnava acharya is Srila Prabhupada, who is representing so many other Vaishnava acharyas, from whom Prabhupada has taken, as we know, so many of their commentaries. So if we follow that, then those very, very, very attractive leelas and pastimes in Vrindavan, and how the residents of Vrindavan, what is their mood and how they think and how they interact with Krishna and with one another, will naturally, automatically, in due course of time, appear or manifest. And therefore, for the vast majority of devotees, that is, we know again from Shastra, one becomes a perfected or purified individual through sadhana, sadhana siddha, nitya siddha, sadhana siddha, and kripa siddha, 3 types of siddhas. So the very, vast ad infinitum, practically everyone who comes in the material world are not nitya siddha. We have no business here.
Yes.
Nitya siddhas are all in the spiritual world.
Yes.
Sometimes, very rarely, occasionally, but it's rare. So vast majority are we are, but the jeev who can become siddha, who can become perfect through sadhana. So we have to just nicely, properly apply the process of sadhana as instructed by our acharyas, and then it will gradually happen. This nice, very important instruction that we find also in the Madhya Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 22, dealing with the whole, actually the chapter is entitled Devotional Service. Just like the second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Second chapter, Divinity and Divine Service, where we find very beautiful whole series of verses describing the science of bhakti. So in that chapter also, chapter 22 of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it deals specifically with bhakti, devotion service. And there's that very famous instruction, Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtana Bhagavat Sravana Maturabhasa Srimurtira Sradhaya Sevana Sakala Sadhana Svesta E Pancha Anga, these 5 processes. Krishna Prema Janama E Pancharalpo Sangha. With even a small interaction or association or application of any of these 5 processes, beginning with Sadhu Sangha, associating with devotees, chanting the holy name, hearing Bhagavatam, living in either Mathura or a place like Mathura, or a community of devotees like Vrindavan, make Vrindavan village, and worshipping, then Vigraha, then very quickly this will awaken what is dormant, what is already there within the heart of all living entities. So in other words, if we just follow the process, if we apply ourselves, then these sentiments, these different levels of realization, this advancement will naturally take place. Yeah. And what we also need to remember, which is very highly emphasized in our sampradaya. I mean, if somebody wants to go to another sampradaya, that's something else. And there are different sampradayas. But in our sampradaya, what is especially emphasized is, we spoke about this a number of times, is the approach of Gosti Anandi as opposed to Bhajan Anandi. So Bhajan Anandi is bona fide and authorized, but our acharyas, our Vaishnava acharyas, have given more importance and emphasis on Gosti Anandi. Gosti Anandi means where one is very concerned about the welfare of the general people, and so he will himself be fixed, be strong in his sadhana, and at the same time he will be engaged in preaching activities, as opposed to Bhajan Anandi, who is primarily concerned about his practice, his advancement in spiritual life, and less involved or less preoccupied, less thinking about reaching out and saving the whole of humanity. So, on many occasions, I've read recently actually from different writings of our Vaishnava acharyas, how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that's a very unique and a very important aspect actually of the emphasis that he was giving, because there's a whole history actually kind of like involved, very important also. But during the time of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, there had been for at least 200, if not 300 years or more, the whole Sahajya type of movement, which is still existing today actually. But Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in order to re-establish the pure teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, had to very much expose, we could say, the falsity of those who, in the name of Lord Chaitanya, were promoting bhakti, isn't it? So there were so many different groups we call Apasampradaya in the name, and externally appearing also as devotees, wearing tilak, kavik japa, but at the same time smoking bidis, and at the same time doing all kinds of activities which are not actually authorized, which actually go against the basic principles of Krishna consciousness. And this was carried forth, this was carried on also by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who had to spend a lot of, when he started the Gaudiya Math, he had to fight against all of these persons, So it was a major struggle, which most of us are much less familiar with. And then Srila Prabhupada, who carried on that mood and that understanding of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, then he introduced the whole Vaishnava culture outside of India. And he made a few concessions at that time to kind of allow as many people as possible to be part of the Krishna consciousness movement and to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And and here we are today, sitting where 2/3 of the class are not even from India.
Yes.
Yeah. So the mission of Lord Chaitanya remains alive today. And of course, there are so many different, we could say, branches and some sub-branches, different understandings and different misunderstandings, different concepts and whatnot. We have to be cautious and try to, who made Hare Krishna worldwide accessible? It's Srila Prabhupada, isn't it? And all of his teachings are found, especially in the various purports of the main books that he has given us: Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Nectar Devotion, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Those Prabhupada identified as the 4 main books. Now we can start reading all kinds of other books, which are also Vaishnava books, which are Goswami books also. But if we fail to understand, the ABC, then there's a danger.
Yes.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, there are, I came to know quite some years back, there is a samadhi in Vrindavan that is known as the Grantha Samadhi. You know about that? Yeah. Have you been there? Yeah. What is Grantha Samadhi? It's different books written by our Goswamis that are totally over our head. that we cannot understand, and that is better not to read. So they put them in samadhi.
Means buried in
Yes,
soil.
buried. And even of the existing books that are accessible, we are recommended not to read certain books unless we are at a certain level.
Yes.
Unless we, it's like first understand 1 + 1 = 2
Yes. Yes.
before going into, advanced mathematics. So, okay, I think we have to bring it to a close for now. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Gauda Pimanande.